Hey VC, happy 2025. We're going to do video tonight, debut albums from the 1960s. So let's get started. So opening up, I think this is the earliest one I've got, Bob Dylan from 1963. This was his, I think it was cut in 1962, 1963. Got released. The first album. Very few originals on here. Mostly they were covers. He did a couple of Song to Woody. I know he wrote. It's on Columbia. It's not an original press. This is a stereo version. A lot of people know this album. It's not considered his best. It didn't sell very well, but it is monumental, and it was the initial one when he was playing Greenwich Village. Secondly, I have the Beatles. I don't have the cover for this, but I have the record, Meet the Beatles, which came out in '64, and has Wanna Hold Your Hand, lead off, Saw Her Standing There, All My Lovin', Till There Was You, I Want to Be Your Man, that was another, and pretty much a lot of Lennon McCartney's on this Meet the Beatles. There was Please Please Me, which was the British one, but I think here it was Meet the Beatles. Could be. I have the cover of the second album, but we'll do second albums another time. All right, Mamas and the Papas, If You Can Believe Your Eyes and Ears. I believe this was 1966. This doesn't have the toilet. The toilet was covered up by California Dreamin', Monday, Monday, and I Call Your Name. First side leads off with Monday, Monday. Of course, Mamas and the Papas, Denny, Cass, John, and Michelle. And Mamas and Monday, Monday leads off the first side. California Dreamin' leads off the second side. It's got the In Crowd, Do You Want to Dance, I Call Your Name. It's got a Lennon and McCartney on here. Very hip. Bunch of the Wrecking Crew backing them up on that, on A&M, right? A&M was their label, because that's who did, Lou Adler did Monterey Pop. This is actually on Dunhill, so I guess distributed by ABC Paramount. Show you the label. I bought this when it came out, or as close to it, maybe 67, 68, something like that. All right, moving right along. Great cover with them all in the bathtub, and if you can find one showing the toilet, it's even worth more. Wednesday morning, 3 a.m., the first Simon and Garfunkel. Great liner notes by Artie. This had Sounds of Silence, first early version of Sounds of Silence, without the band backing it up. They also did a Dylan on here, The Times They Are Changin'. So you see Dylan, the Beatles were pervasive. Peggy O is on here. A lot of folk stuff. Great album, Wednesday morning, 3 a.m. Exciting new sounds in the folk tradition by Simon and Garfunkel, produced by Tom and Wilson, who later produced Bob Dylan. Both were on Capitol. Quicksilver Messenger Service. I believe this was 1968, if I'm not mistaken. The great David Freeberg, who went on to work with the folks from Jefferson Airplane, John Cipollina, Gary Duncan, and Greg Elmore. Pride of Man was the big hit from this. It's got a great cover. Who did Rick Griffin who did a lot of Grateful Dead and Fillmore type posters. And here's the band, the four. This was before Nicky Hopkins joined them. We'll see Nicky Hopkins on some later debut 60s albums, but a great, great lead-off debut album by the great psychedelic Quicksilver Messenger Service out of San Francisco. Okay, staying with the San Francisco theme, got a bunch of those because we're into like 67, 68. This was Country Joe and the Fishes. Electric, what is it? Electric music for the mind and body, some of these are. And here's the band on the back, looking tuned up. The wonderful Country Joe McDonald, of course, who was so great at Woodstock. And the big hit from this was Not So Sweet Martha Lorraine. Great Flying High. It's a song Grace that I imagine was about Grace Slick and the Jefferson Airplane. Really good album by Country Joe. Psychedelic Fresh Cream, Across the Pond. Build the first supergroup with Ginger Baker and the great Jack Bruce. A lot of covers on here, of course. Cat Squirrel, Robert Johnson's For Until Late, Rollin' and Tumblin', Muddy Waters, the whole second side pretty much, except for Toad, except for the drum solo, is all covers. And then I Feel Free was the big single from this. Cat Squirrel, that we'll see Jethro Tull also did. That's Clapton and Jack Bruce and Ginger. And there they are in the back. On Atco. Fresh Cream, 67. Also in 67, we get the debut from Grateful Dead. First Grateful Dead album. It's got a great cover. And my albums are a little beat up. You know, they've been around. What can I say? This is on the Greenie Warner Brothers. And had the original band, you know, just the one drummer and Pigpen. The five of them, Phil, Jerry, Bill, Pigpen, and Bob Weir. Golden Road, Beat It On Down the Line, Good Morning Little Schoolgirl. A lot of these songs, Viola Lee Blues, Minglewood, Morning Dew, they did throughout their history, you know, till Jerry died in 95. So it was, the problem with the album was they cut it down in LA and supposedly they were doing speed, so it's very speeded up. A lot of the versions, I guess they wanted to put energy on it and didn't come out the way they really wanted it. But, you know, they had a lot of albums and a lot of concerts to get even with us. All right, moving right along. Jimi Hendrix Experience, Are You Experience, 1967. A classic on the reprise. The tricolor there, right? So this, almost every song on this is golden. I would say this is a 5-star album. Though my favorite Jimi Hendrix album, as many know, is Axis Bold as Love. This is pretty much a perfect album. Third Stone from the Sun. May This Be Love, Maybe This Be Love, Love or Confusion, Purple Haze, Wind Cries Mary, Are You Experienced, Manic Depression, Hey Joe, which was the cover. There's the guys on the back. So they often did a color thing on the back and then black and white on the back. I noticed that's kind of a theme for these debut albums. Be Forewarned used to be an experiment making you a bit older. This one makes you wider. You know, they tried to make the liner notes be catchy, you know, get your attention. So on reprise. So next we have aforementioned Jethro Tull. This was their debut. I just got this recently. This was. I keep calling it Time Was. This was. There they are, and you can see they kind of aged themselves. Again, nice color. Kind of minorly psychedelic. This was when they were more into their blues jamming phase. They did Cat Squirrel on here. Song for Jeffrey was really the big hit. Again, you got a monochromatic, kind of psychedelic picture on the back. And a great album to get Jethro Tull started. Of course, Ian Anderson changed the personnel by the time of Aqualung and Thick as a Brick and all that. The Band, 1968, so we're moving ahead here. 1968 was a banner year. The great cover, painted by Bob Dylan, of course. The Band, Bob Dylan's backing band. Everybody was waiting for this one. They'd heard the Basement tapes. They'd been across the pond. Great cover, The Next of Kin, all the Canadian family, that great picture from the Catskills, and a picture of Big Pink up in Saugerties, which is not too far from here, upstate. And we've got great songs on this. The Wait was the big one, of course. Tears of Rage. I like Long Black Veil. Wheels on Fire, which Bob Dylan co-wrote. Bob Dylan co-wrote, I think, 3 or 4 songs on here. Everything's great on here. Caledonia Mission, Chest Fever is my favorite band song. There's not a bad song on here. I'd say Big Pink is another 5-star. And came out, just a few years after the Bob Dylan release. They were the Hawks, and then they became the Band under Bob Dylan. Jeff Beck's first group and album, Truth, and this had a stellar lineup with Rod Stewart doing the vocals, young Rod Stewart. Bass was Ronnie Wood, later to be with the Rolling Stones, and drums Mickey Waller. This again was before Nicky Hopkins. The first albums didn't have Nicky Hopkins. Nicky Hopkins joined a lot of these bands later. Quicksilver and the Jeff Beck group, the Rod Stewart group, which morphed into the Faces and Rod Stewart, of course. So on Epic. So this is a later press of Jeff Beck's Truth, but it's really fantastic album. He starts off with the Yardbird Shapes of Things. He covers Morning Dew, which is a song that the Grateful Dead also covered, which is rather interesting. Green Sleeves on the second side. The Beck's Bolero that had Jimmy Page on 12-string. See if I can get this right. John Paul Jones on bass. Keith Moon on the drums. Just amazing. And Ain't Superstitious closed it up. So Old Man River, he does a cover. It's just really great. I would give Truth a 4.5 stars. Definitely another 5-star album. CSN's debut. Everybody goes back and forth. Was the debut better? Was Deja Vu better? People like Deja Vu because it had Neil Young on it. But this is a fantastic album. We played this one a lot when these guys came together. Another super group. They came out of the Hollies and the Byrds and the Buffalo Springfield, of course. Everybody knows that story, and there they are. Graham over here, and Stephen Stills in the middle, and then walrus-looking Dave Crosby on the other side. And they went back to shoot this house again, and it had been torn down. And that's not Neil Young packed in the back. That's the drummer, Dallas Taylor, peeking out. And everything on here is good. Sweet Judy Blue Eyes through to Long Time Gone. Guinevere, Lady of the Island, Wooden Ships that he wrote with Paul Kantner. I mean, there's, again, a 5-star album. Pretty much everybody knows that one. That was a big debut. And boy, when I remember going to the record store to wait for when, not Four-Way Street, when Deja Vu came out. We couldn't wait for that. Chicago Transit Authority. So I think we're up to 69 now. Came out, the debut from the Midwest. Midwest was kind of underrepresented. I mean, there were some bands from the Midwest, of course, Seeger, but he came out later. a lot of the bands, Styx in Kansas, then the REO Speedwagon, all came out later. But this was the first one to really take us by storm from Chicago and put, Chicago had been known for the blues, of course, Chess Records and Buddy Guy and Junior Wells, but these guys were fantastic, led by the great Terry Kath, who unfortunately died by a tragic suicide with a gun, an accidental suicide. Really, James William Garcia was the producer on this, and everything on here is introduction. Anybody really know what time it is? Questions 67 and 68. And then the side 3 and 4 are really just jams. It's fantastic, and had the whole chanting from the Chicago Convention from '68. So this was really a momentous album. I would probably give this 4.5 stars too. Great album. Yeah, my albums have some ringware. They were original. They've been around, and they started the theme of putting their cover. Of course, they were Chicago Transit Authority for this. It just says Chicago Transit Authority. By the second album in '68, they became Chicago, but or in '69 rather. This was '68. Yeah, they with the wood, and then they, the second one was metal, and they used different textures for the album covers. Santana, lead off. Now, when Santana was in Woodstock, many of you probably know this, they weren't signed. Graham made a deal with Wadley and the promoters for them to play. He would work the festival, and he was, the impresario of the Fillmore East and the Fillmore West, and one of the biggest rock promoters, if not the biggest rock promoter in the country. So having him there, he was there, and Scorsese was behind the camera, was amazing. But he said, you've got to have these guys. They were kind of the house band at the Fillmore West, and they hadn't been signed yet, but they surely were after they appeared at Woodstock. I believe those pictures were taken by Jim Marshall, probably. Yep, back cover photos, Jim Marshall, the great Jim Marshall, the rock photographer from San Francisco, at probably the Fillmore West. Fantastic band, Greg Rowley. This was before Neil Schon was with them, Mike Carabello, Dave Brown. Mike Shreve, we heard he was 16. I think he was 18 or 19, but he was very, very young, and great artwork. Santana on Columbia again. Columbia really got a lot of these great artists. Leslie West, Mountain, I'm throwing this one in here, came out, I believe in '69. This is a great album. Long Red is a great blues. He's got Felix Pappalardi playing bass with him. So this was the beginnings of Mountain. It's on the Windfall record, and they were also at Woodstock, another Woodstock, a nice Long Island guy, Leslie West. May he rest in peace. And what else? Southbound Train is on here, Blood of the Sun, Dreams of Milk and Honey, and a Dylan cover, This Wheel's on Fire, which was, it was unusual for Leslie to do covers unless he was doing Crossroads or, blues cover. So this is a great album, Leslie West, Mountain. Joe Cocker's first, 1969, before, with a little help from my friends. And yeah, I'm thinking maybe this was the second album. Maybe With a Little Help from My Friends was the first album. I'll have to check that. But this is a great album and did come out in the '60s. And I bought this with the Lennon McCartney, She Came In Through the Bathroom Window, Delta Lady by Leon Russell, Bird on the Wire, Leonard Cohen, Dear Landlord, an obscure Bob Dylan song because it wasn't really on a record. At That Darlin' Be Home Soon by John Sebastian, Something by George Harrison. So really, really good. I think I misspoke on this one. I think With a Little Help from My Friends was the first Joe Cocker. So I'll rectify that in the next video. My apologies. On Allman Brothers Band, I didn't have the first one, but this is Beginnings and has the Allman Brothers Band that came out in '69. Don't Want You No More, Into Not My Cross to Bear, Black Hearted Woman, Trouble No More, probably one of the greatest opening sides of a band ever. Second side had Dreams and Whipping Post on it, so that's almost a perfect album. I would give that 4 3/4 stars. The first Allman Brothers album. And here's the band in their glory. Barry up there, and then Butch and J-Mo. Dwayne hitting the note, and Greg and a young Dickie down at the bottom with the Les Paul. This was these was pictures at the Fillmore from the Beginnings album that we bought in '73 because it had Idlewild South and the first Allman Brothers on it. When Eat a Peach came out and was so big, we bought Fillmore East, and we bought this pretty quick because they were great. And last but not least, I'm up to 20 minutes, Flying Burrito Brothers, 1969, the great Graham Parsons kicked off country rock with a bang. Linda Ronstadt, the Eagles, Poco, Buffalo Springfield had already been going, so great pictures of them with the nudie suits. I've featured this album before. It's just one of my favorite albums. Sin City, Wheels, Hot Burrito 1 and 2, Hippie Boy, My Uncle, Dark End of the Street. I mean, Graham is just in rare form with Chris Hillman on bass, Sneaky Pete on Chris Etheridge. It's just a fantastic, fantastic album. The Gilded Palace of Sin, Flying Burrito Brothers' first album. And that's it for 60s albums. Debuts. Hope you liked it. Keep on rocking, keep on spinning. Thank you very much for watching my channel. Please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I'm going to try to do, I know I've said this before, at least 2 videos a week. Try to get it up to speed for you. I have a lot of exciting things in the pipeline coming down. And yeah, keep on rocking. Doodah Dave signing out.